For 6 months, no one had seen Evelyn Cross, the once celebrated CEO of Crosstech Industries. Her mansion stood on a quiet hill, its lights rarely on, its gates always closed. After her cancer diagnosis, Evelyn had refused treatment, interviews, and visitors. She told the world she needed time to think, but truthfully, she was waiting for the end, alone. One rainy afternoon, a soft knock echoed through her front door. Evelyn ignored it at first. But when it came again, louder, desperate, she slowly rose and opened it. Standing there was a man in worn clothes, holding a little girl who couldn't have been more than 8. "I'm sorry, ma'am," he said nervously. "Our car broke down, and she's sick. Could we just rest for a while?" Evelyn's instinct was to turn them away. She wasn't ready for company, much less strangers. But when she saw the girl's pale face and trembling lips, something inside her shifted. Without thinking, she opened the door wider. "Come in," she whispered. The warmth of the fireplace filled the silence as the father held his daughter close. Evelyn brought them towels and soup, acts she hadn't done for anyone in months. When the little girl smiled weakly and said, "Thank you, ma'am," Evelyn felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, life stirring again. She didn't know it yet, but this unexpected knock would change everything. Evelyn sat quietly across from the little girl, watching her eat spoonfuls of soup as the storm outside faded into a gentle drizzle. The man introduced himself as Daniel, a single father who worked 2 jobs to care for his daughter, Lila. Their car had broken down while driving to a nearby clinic. "She's been having fevers lately," Daniel explained softly. "Doctors say it's just a bad infection, but I can't afford the full treatment." Evelyn's chest tightened. She knew the look in his eyes, the helplessness, the fear. She'd seen it in the mirror months ago. Lila looked up suddenly. "Are you sick too, ma'am?" The question caught Evelyn off guard. Her lips parted, but no words came. Finally, she nodded. "Yes, sweetheart. I am." Lila smiled, innocent and brave. "My dad says sick people need love more than medicine sometimes." That sentence hit Evelyn harder than any diagnosis had. Love, she had all the wealth in the world, but not that. Not since her parents passed, not since her company became her only purpose. Hours passed, and Evelyn found herself talking, really talking, for the first time in months. Daniel listened quietly as she shared her fears, her regrets, her loneliness. When night fell, Evelyn offered them a guest room. Before sleeping, Lila whispered, "You're gonna be okay, Miss Evelyn. I can feel it." For the first time in a long while, Evelyn didn't dread tomorrow. As she turned off the lights, she looked at the small child sleeping peacefully and thought, maybe hope doesn't knock twice, but sometimes, once is enough. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the curtains, something Evelyn hadn't noticed in months. The mansion, once cold and lifeless, felt strangely warm. She found Daniel in the kitchen, making breakfast with the few supplies he had brought. The smell of coffee and toasted bread filled the air. "You didn't have to do that," Evelyn said quietly. Daniel smiled. "Sometimes doing something normal helps you forget how hard life is." Evelyn nodded, feeling an ache of truth in his words. Over breakfast, Daniel talked about his struggles, how he lost his wife during childbirth, how he juggled work and parenting, how he prayed every night for strength. His voice was steady, but Evelyn could hear the exhaustion behind it. "Why didn't you ask for help?" she asked. "I did," he replied. "But sometimes people don't listen until they see you breaking." Evelyn looked away. Those words pierced deep. She had been that kind of person once. The CEO who ignored letters from struggling employees, who believed hard work solved everything. Now, sitting across from this humble father, she realized how disconnected she'd become from the world she once led. Later that afternoon, Evelyn took them to her study. On the desk lay stacks of unopened mail, medical reports, and business proposals she'd abandoned. She turned to Daniel and said softly, "I built everything with logic and numbers, but I forgot what it meant to care." Daniel smiled gently. "It's never too late to start again." That evening, Evelyn sat by the window as Lila drew pictures beside her, flowers, sunshine, and smiling faces. For the first time, Evelyn wasn't afraid of the future. She whispered to herself, "Maybe healing starts when you open the door." 2 days passed, and Evelyn found herself feeling different. She woke early, joined Daniel and Lila for breakfast, and even stepped outside to feel the wind on her face. For months she'd hidden from life, but now she wanted to see it again. Lila had started to recover, her fever subsiding, her laughter echoing through the grand halls that once felt like tombs. Evelyn began smiling again, quietly amazed at how such a small presence could fill so much emptiness. But that evening, as clouds gathered overhead, Evelyn felt a sharp pain in her chest. She steadied herself against the wall, gasping softly. Daniel rushed to her side. "Evelyn. Are you okay?" "I'm fine," she lied, forcing a weak smile. "Just a little tired." But Daniel saw through her. He found the medical reports on her desk later that night, the ones detailing her declining condition. When he confronted her gently, she broke down. "I didn't want treatment," she confessed through tears. "I didn't want to fight anymore. I thought there was no point." Daniel placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "You opened your door to strangers. That is fighting. You still have a reason." At that moment, Lila appeared, holding one of her drawings, a picture of Evelyn smiling, standing beside them under a bright sun. "See, Miss Evelyn? You're part of our family now." Evelyn felt tears roll down her cheeks. That night, as rain began to fall again, she made a quiet promise, to herself, and to them. "I'll try," she whispered. "Not just for me, but for you." And for the first time since her diagnosis, Evelyn picked up the phone and called her doctor. Weeks turned into months, and Evelyn kept her promise. She began treatment, quietly determined, her once empty mansion now alive with laughter and warmth. Daniel and Lila visited often, sometimes bringing flowers, sometimes just their smiles. Each time Evelyn felt weak, she'd remember the night they first knocked on her door, and it gave her strength. During one visit, Lila brought her a small potted plant. "It's for you, Miss Evelyn," she said proudly. "Daddy says if you take care of it, it'll grow strong, just like you." Evelyn smiled, her eyes glistening. "Then I'll make sure it never fades." As her health slowly improved, Evelyn returned to Crosstech Industries for the first time in nearly a year. Her employees were stunned to see her, thinner, softer, but glowing with new purpose. In a heartfelt speech, she announced a new foundation, the Lila Hope Project, dedicated to helping children from low-income families access medical care. When reporters asked what inspired her change, Evelyn smiled. "A little girl reminded me that healing doesn't start in hospitals, it starts in hearts." Months later, Evelyn stood at her window, watching Daniel and Lila's car disappear down the road. The mansion no longer felt like a cage, it felt like home. She looked at the small plant on her windowsill. It had grown tall and strong, its leaves reaching for the light. Evelyn whispered softly, "Thank you for knocking." And as the evening sun poured through the glass, she realized something profound. The door she once closed to the world had become the door through which she found life again.